Wife died months after giving birth. Now her last living piece of memory, our son, became a reminder of her betrayal after a DNA test. I, 32 male, am shattered and don't know where to turn. My wife passed away last month, only 7 months after giving birth to our son. She developed peripartum cardiomyopathy, a rare and severe form of heart failure that can occur in the months following childbirth. Despite the doctor's best efforts, she didn't survive. Losing her so suddenly has left me heartbroken and in a state of constant grief. 3 weeks ago, my wife's best friend came over to visit. She was visibly nervous and eventually told me she had something sensitive to share. After some hesitation, she revealed that my wife had confided in her that she'd been unfaithful around that time our son was conceived and that there was a chance he might not be mine. I was stunned and angry. My wife's best friend was telling me this only weeks after my wife's death. It felt like an attempt to tarnish her memory. I couldn't believe it. I told her to leave and not to come back, convinced she was lying or trying to shift blame onto me somehow. The whole thing felt like a betrayal, and I tried to push the thought out of my mind. But once the idea was planted, it wouldn't go away. I kept wondering what if she was telling the truth. After days of tormenting myself with this possibility, I decided to get a DNA test. It wasn't an easy decision. I felt guilty for even considering it, but I needed closure. Yesterday, the results came back. My worst fears were confirmed. My son isn't biologically mine. Now I'm in a turmoil. I loved my wife, and I wanted to believe our son was a piece of her and me together. But knowing he's not biologically mine has left me feeling lost and betrayed. I keep looking at him, trying to feel the same bond, but the pain of my wife's infidelity is so fresh. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to move past it. I feel awful even considering it, but I don't know if I can raise him on my own. The betrayal I feel is overwhelming, and I don't know if I'm capable of giving him the love and care he deserves. It's breaking my heart, and I feel like a failure, but I also feel like I'm not equipped to give him the life he deserves. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the updates. Have you thought to call her a friend and ask who the father is? That took a lot for her to tell you. She could have never told you. The right thing to do first is attempt to find this guy and inform him. I haven't contacted her since that day. However, your suggestion is sound, and I'd definitely contact her for his details if she has any. More than likely, she knows who it is. Be sure to apologize and say it was such a big shock, but you appreciate she told you the truth. Do you recall looking back things that didn't add up? Did she ever mention a guy and put off like the person was a friend or coworker? Did any guy stand out maybe at her service or anything like that? Did you look through her phone since finding out to see if there was anything on there? Look at her bank statement for unusual charges and when she could have been seeing him. Not the a-hole. It's not the child's fault. You should tell your wife's family so they can take him. I worry if you raise him, you'll always resent him. I'm so sorry for your loss and your wife's betrayal. Please get therapy so you can heal. Best of luck, Obi, not the owl. The child will feel that hesitation and frustration by the time they're in kindergarten. They won't understand why, but they will sense the mood no matter how well you try to mask it. Feelings aren't right or wrong. They're just feelings, but they can definitely influence others. Your late wife presumably has living relatives. Contact them about it and involve them in the situation. I wouldn't just hand the baby over to the States without telling them, but if an actual relative is willing to step up, that would be a better outcome. Not the a-hole. I'm sorry this has happened. Unfortunately, now he is a reminder of betrayal and a reminder that your life with your wife was a lie. It might be best to put him up for adoption or let your wife's family take him. You will never have the bond with him that you would have had if this truth had not been uncovered. I haven't told anyone yet about the test. However, I think it'd be best if I do so immediately. Now for the updates. I hadn't thought of contacting their friend, but I will now. The replies have really solidified what I have been feeling. The child is innocent, but I don't think I'd be able to love or care for him as well as I should. Informing the family will be my first step, then contacting the affair partner if possible. Adoption will be my last resort. Many of you may believe I'm a monster, but put yourself in my situation. I hope you all understand. Mini update 2. I called her a friend, apologized for my behavior, and also asked why she hadn't informed me as soon as she knew. She said her loyalties play more with her friend than with me. Okay, fine. I asked her about the affair partner, and she said she doesn't know as it was a one-time thing. Apparently, it happened during her work time, whatever that meant, and during the daytime as she'd been told. I'm not fully understanding, but it seems like she was with a guy when she was supposed to be working. Many of you are suggesting I go through her phone or other social contacts, but I don't know any passwords. I never doubted her. We weren't controlling of each other, and we gave each other plenty of privacy. The next step is informing the family. Both minded hers. I want to clarify. I don't hate the baby, and I'm not so heartless that I'd throw him out of the house. Whatever happens will be handled according to procedure. I'm not going to instantly abandon a child just because he isn't mine. Now for the full update. Thank you to everyone who reached out with advice and support. I didn't get to respond to every message, but I really appreciate it. After finding out my son isn't biologically mine, I decided to tell both my family and my in-laws. My family was shocked and angry about everything, but they stood by me. My in-laws were also shocked but didn't believe it at first. They asked to see the DNA test results, and after seeing them, They suggested we do a second test with both families present just to be sure. They said that if it confirmed he isn't mine, my late wife's sister, who has a 4-year-old daughter, would adopt him, and I could take my name off the birth certificate if I wanted. I agreed, and we did a test yesterday. The results should come in about a week. Honestly, I'm relieved with how things are playing out. There hasn't been any drama and everyone's been understanding. I've also talked to a lawyer who said getting my name off the certificate should be straightforward with the test results. Thank you all again for the support. And for those who offered to adopt him, I'm sorry, but your kindness means a lot. I'll update when the final results are in. Not the whole. This is heartbreaking knowing the last living piece of your wife's memory is just a reminder of her betrayal. It must be such a relief to have everyone on the same page and avoiding drama. I hope everything works out in a way that brings Sophie peace. I don't know. I think knowing she was a scumbag could also make it easier to let go of the idea that a perfect life was ripped from his grip. It's horrible in the short term, but wouldn't you rather have a dead crappy ex than a dead great one? I'm glad they are testing both sides of the family just in case a mistake happened at the hospital. Yeah. Imagine if it wasn't the wives either. A new family who had this happen to them took a baby home and 9 days later found out they were given the wrong baby to take home. It was a nightmare. Wow. What happened after they discovered it? Were they able to get their biological child? Yeah. They didn't even realize it wasn't their baby. The hospital called to let them know that their baby was back at the hospital and that the baby they had at home was someone else's. It turned out their baby had gotten sick. And after a blood test, the doctors informed the parents that their baby's blood type didn't match the one recorded at birth. I think they cross-checked other babies born around the same time and realized it was probably his family. They all took a DNA test, and when the results came out, they swapped the babies back. But there were plenty of tears and sobbing. The mothers had been breastfeeding the babies and were both quite attached to them. I think the kids are about 2 or 3 years old now. And last I heard, the families were still good friends. Next story. Am I the a-hole for wanting a divorce immediately after my husband's affair with a coworker? We have a 4-year-old. Context. Last week, I discovered Tim's messages between my husband of 4 years and a coworker that were spicy, to say the least. They were claiming to have animalistic thoughts about each other, saying that caring for each other was their main priority, and my husband even told her that he thought they would be together a few years from now. Although the spicy messages seem to have mostly occurred in the last couple of weeks, their discussion history was long and extensive with deep conversations about shared music, books, TV interests, things happening at home, and their feelings and emotions. One of my husband's messages implied that some version of this affair had been going on for at least 6 months. The night before this discovery, we had actually made a commitment to each other to really try again in our marriage. I prompted this conversation because I could sense something felt off or different. We both agreed to put in the effort. However, when I found the messages the next day, there was no indication that he was planning to end things with her, despite our conversation the night before. I think he intended to try with us and continue things with her as well. As soon as I discovered the messages, I left the house and haven't seen him in person since. My 4-year-old son and I are now back in the house while my husband stays with his parents until we make long-term arrangements. Given other tumultuous times in our shared history, including drinking issues on his part around the time our son was born, I met with a divorce lawyer today, and I'm strongly considering proceeding. I let him know this. The problem is that, of course, he's now telling me he loves me, loves our family, and wants me to come back home to make things right. He keeps saying I did things over the last couple of years that led to us being unhappy too. I've never cheated. That he was lonely wasn't in the right frame of mind and that because it wasn't physical. He didn't actually cheat. Though in the messages, he mentioned wanting a part of her body. He keeps saying he wants to have a conversation, but I feel like taking it off text messages will just give him more leeway to avoid certain questions I ask. At first, I was so sure I wanted to move ahead with the divorce. Now I'm emotional and confused. Am I moving too quickly with all this? Should I have a conversation with him first? Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. He's guilting you and is only sorry because he was caught and you deserve better. Divorce the unfaithful sack of a turd and go live a fulfilling life with your son. Congratulations on losing the dead weight. My son is the single biggest reason I met with a lawyer today. Thinking of his future and wanting him to have security in his day-to-day life is keeping me going. You want him to see you modeling a healthy relationship, not a toxic one. Don't stay with a cheater. Don't fall for that sudden change of heart BS. Follow through with the divorce and make it hurt financially. That's the other hard part of me. Thinking about the finances element somehow adds to the guilt. The fact that he's blaming you for his cheating is unreal. He even predicted the end of your marriage in his messages to his girlfriend. He just gets to be your horrible partner a little sooner. Forgot to add she's married too. Okay, well, I'm petty as hell, so I'd tell her spouse what's going on. Update. Thank you to those who've shared their stories, offered their perspective. This has been immensely helpful, and I think got in my head in the right space to keep moving forward or at the very least, not halted today. Next story. Am I the a-hole for wanting to dump my boyfriend after he lost my savings in a scam? I'm currently trying to decide whether I should end a relationship or if it's even reconcilable. My boyfriend and I moved across the country for my job. He works remotely. I am the breadwinner, making 4 times as much as him. He has lived at home his whole life and has never paid bills before aside from credit cards. When we arrived at our new home, he was in a trading group and seeing great returns. He convinced me it would be a good idea to invest my money too. So I did, and I fully accept the consequences of that. It turns out the group was a scam. And between the money we pulled together, we were only able to withdraw $10,000 of the $25,000 we invested. I invested $15,000, and he invested $10,000. Since I'm the higher earner, I told him to keep the $10,000, and I would work hard to recoup my loss since it's easier for me to do so. I asked him to keep the money as a NASDAQ and not to trade it. Fast forward a few months. I've recovered. I took us to a nice vacation and paid for most of it. No problem since I make more. We came home from the vacation, and I began looking at homes to purchase so we could start our life together. I asked him if he could contribute a portion of the $10,000 toward a down payment for our house. He then informed me that he had attempted to trade the money to make back our loss and lost it all. He never even told me about it or consulted me before he did it. He has an expensive knife collection back home, and it's worth noting that half of his paychecks go toward paying off his debts, so he can't contribute much to bills. He won't sell off the collection to put himself ahead in life. Am I the a-hole for dumping my boyfriend for being poor with his money and making bad decisions? Girl, what? You can't be this afraid to be single. Have some self-respect. He lost money you worked for and you let him off the hook? The first incident is as much your fault as his. He's obviously an idiot, but anyone putting that kind of money into something needs to do their own research, especially if the person bringing the offer doesn't exactly have a strong financial background. No, you're sensible. Incompatible financial values are the major cause of divorce. I think it's hard because for the first year, everything was storybook perfect. Felt like I was going to spend my life with this person. Then the financial woes started to unravel, and it's just hard to accept. I know what I need to do, but reading outsiders' perspective makes me feel more confident and serves as a reminder that I'm not being irrational. Last story, ex-husband requesting iMessage in a group text with his fiancée. I have been divorced for 12 years, and my kids with him are 15-17. We have very minimal contact. I really try to text only when necessary. Recently, I sent a curtsy text to my ex-husband about a small purchase for a necessity for my oldest so that his dad doesn't buy it too. The follow-up text from him was, "Hey, I just want it to be known. I want my fiancée included in the messages." Whatever you text, she knows anyway. No point leaving her out. If you leave your husband out, that's not my business. Whether you like it or not, she's just as much a part of their lives as I am. So in the future, please include her. I'm not trying to start anything. I feel like it's a respect thing to include her. Fiancé is my other half, and we make decisions together. Thanks. Am I the a-hole because I do not want to message both of them? In the past, when I tried to include her in an effort to get along, anytime there was a disagreement, it became a 2 versus 1 argument, and they had what I feel is verbally abusive communication. In this instance, my ex said I was being childish, ridiculous, etc., because I said no. He is relentless in this request, not the a-hole. I will message you as required about our children. What you do with those messages, if you share them with your fiancé or not, is not my concern. I instead no disrespect, but how you handle your relationship is on you, not on me. And to be clear, you don't get to tell me what to do, so stop trying. I'm petty. I'll include her in the text when you add her to our custody agreement. Until then, per our legal paperwork, I will only be communicating with you. It's not your problem if his fiancée is so insecure about a relationship that's been over for 12 years. I often wonder if he messed up and she feels like she can't trust him. I don't understand the step-parent's insecurity. I left him 13 years ago and have never